Hey folks, it's Cokes. You may also know me as Ko. You may know me as Koku Puff, right? You're here on Koku TV, and this is the inaugural episode of Save the Heathens, guys, because we've got a lot to pray about, okay? I don't know who you pray to, but somebody's got to get down on their knees and genuflect and get this world together. And I'm here, guys, to offer some level of objectivity and just discuss some of the current events. At some particular point in time, I do want this to become something that is a daily. It's really, really hard for me to commit to that often because I've got a lot of things going on, and I'm East African, and that means that I have 87 jobs. And when I have 87 jobs, I'll tell you guys, I'm doing those jobs at all times consecutively. Okay, so I say all that to say, let's also get the elephant out of the room. I know I have a very large forehead. If you want to talk about it, that's totally fine. I'm not somebody that gets offended. I don't need to be the prettiest girl in the room, okay, guys? I also don't need to necessarily have the largest forehead in the room, guys. We know the world takes all kinds. If you want to talk about things that have nothing to do with anything, first of all, you cannot offend me, okay? The facts are the facts. It is what it is, okay? If I had a gang or some fan base, something like that, I would hope that, well, actually, if I had a fan base, and I guess in the vein of like the Barbs, I'd want my people to be the coke heads, with a K, okay? But if they can't be coke heads, in the interest of being family friendly, I suppose they just be the five heads. This is where you come for a forehead that you can literally palm with all five of your fingers, right? But let's get started. So, in this particular episode, I do want to let you guys know a little bit about me if you don't already know something about me. Maybe you've never heard of me before, and that's fine, okay? So, for all the three people that do, you may have heard this information before, but let's get into it for everybody else. So, again, my name is Koku, and people often call me Cokes. That is just very, very common. As a child, people would call me Coco. If you call me Coco now, I pretty much know that you've probably known me since I was like 8 or 9 years old. So that kind of tells me a little bit about our relationship. Other than that, hey, listen, guys, I just like to share the news. I'm not an argumentative person, guys, so you're not going to have me going back and forth, back and forth. I always say what I mean, okay? So that's another thing. If I say something here or anywhere else, I'm very direct about what I mean, and I state exactly what I say. There's nothing that I'm hiding behind. I'm not throwing rocks and hiding my hands. There's no double talk with me. So oftentimes I really get irritated when people make assumptions based on dialogue, and I usually can get people together. But you're not going to see me shouting with people. You're not going to see me arguing with people. You're never going to see me attacking people. I don't believe in the ad hominem style of like sort of cutting people down and trying to humiliate people. That's not where I am. And that's why I just have not been someone that has been really dialed into the current style of media, right? So, and then speaking of media, we'll kind of get into that. I do have a journalism background. I went to journalism school, if that means anything to anybody, but you'll realize a lot of what I do and how I say things is really, really informed and comes from a place of being someone that wants to lead with sort of, the truth. And then I can offer opinion, but I never want my opinion to be like a law. I'm not coming from that place. So I just like to make sure that we all keep an open mind and that we're just all very much so dialed into, hey, this is what it is. Let's sit back, process it. Here's what we've assumed. And then, let's just see what the facts are and what we can conclude based on, patterns of behavior and so forth and so on. So let's get into the first order of business right now, guys. And I really want to talk about this congestion pricing issue. There have been a lot of people online, shouting at the screen, typing very furiously, foaming at the mouth, just very, very angry about this congestion pricing issue. And I'll tell you guys this, I'm a very, very hybrid individual. I am someone that bikes, I'm someone that walks, I'm someone that drives, and so I really understand. I'm someone that even has to drive very, very often. Sometimes I'm driving daily, right? Much of that is more so the outer boroughs. But I do not agree with the congestion pricing, and it's not for the reasons that you guys would immediately think, you know. And I want to get into that for sure. And also, just one more thing, I don't want you guys to think that I'm coming from some political place. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not anything. I'm just an individual that just wants to be safe, that wants things to make sense. And I'm here for the truth and nothing else. Okay. So I'm not coming from, again, not an emotional place. I'm passionate in my thoughts, right? Um, but nothing that I'm going to be doing is led by or driven by emotion. That's just not the kind of individual that I am. So again, getting back to this congestion pricing issue, just sort of, again, I don't agree with the congestion pricing, at least not even in the way that it's rolled out. And I will tell you guys why in just a moment. But let's just sort of get to sort of the bottom line, like what this really is, what it's all about, before I tell you guys where my positioning is with this. but it's not about like, oh my gosh, they're stopping us. I'm never going to drive into the city again. And they're stopping us from driving, in Midtown to Lower Manhattan and, forget Manhattan and forget the city. I hate these people, whatever. Like all of that stuff, curb that. Because if we're being quite honest, guys, how many people realistically, how many of you, and I think a lot of people, when I said that, it didn't make sense, I actually did it, I made a statement on Threads that kind of people just, again, didn't understand where I was coming from, didn't bother to ask, just made complete assumptions based on how they've been dialoguing with each other. And again, I'm a very accessible person. If you want to ask me something, ask me. Do not put words in my mouth. Do not assume anything about what I'm saying, okay? Someone said, so who else is never driving into Manhattan again unless it's Harlem? Have it your way, Kathy, right? So my answer to that was the FDR and West Side Highway are exempt, which should be the only driving into Manhattan one is doing outside of Harlem anyway. And again, that was when even me saying that was just me kind of just sort of just being reductive and, kind of not really going into detail. But I don't drive in Lower Manhattan and Midtown. I can pretty much count the times that I've weaved through those streets with any kind of like deliberate purpose and was just driving through Lower. I don't do that. It does not save you time. Someone said that sentence is confusing. What are you trying to say? Only Harlem is worth it if you drive into Manhattan? I do think I needed to provide clarity there. So what I said was that was an oversimplification. What I'm saying is that for most of us, driving into Midtown and Lower Manhattan becomes a matter of inconvenience and will likely cost more than public transportation when you figure in parking, traffic, and time management, possibly tickets. I can take the LIRR from Queens and get to Midtown in under 20 minutes for $7 peak and $5 off peak. That's a city ticket, folks. It's in the city zone. It's also far more direct and convenient to take the subway from express lines in trendier parts of Brooklyn. When I say trendier parts of Brooklyn, we're obviously talking about like a Fort Greene, a Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, Prospect Heights, downtown Brooklyn, and so on. Someone said, I thought that was the point. Again, referring to me, to deter people from driving into Manhattan to reduce congestion. Seems to be an effective strategy then, no? So this is where I think people get very confused because they don't understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. Because again, I'm not coming from an emotional place. I am obviously, I'm very much so a tree hugger. I'm like, save the trees. I do think that we need much more green space in New York City. I do want this place to be far more walkable than it is in the outer boroughs. I do think that we suffer from lack in that sense. So just sort of hear me out on this. I said, I don't even agree with congestion pricing, but I like to observe things from all angles. My point is there's a lot of loud hollering on the internet for a scenario that isn't truly affecting the average person. This has nothing to do with socioeconomics or demographics when I say this. Most of us who have been driving long enough wouldn't bother navigating Lower Manhattan or Midtown, even prior to congestion pricing, because it's time consuming, expensive, and inconvenient. So again, these are sort of like non-issues that have become issues that are distracting everybody from the bigger picture, right? Again, we're going to get into that, but I don't want to get into that just yet. So when we're talking about congestion pricing, right? So let's just say you're driving into New York. For those that have been driving into New York, I don't even know why the heck anybody would choose a daily drive into Manhattan if you live in New Jersey or Connecticut. I don't get it. Even prior to congestion pricing, these toll zones are very, very expensive. So I don't even get what that's about. Like that is just that's a burden to me. And I think that the path and the MTA have worked very, very well together in terms of trying to provide something, at least from the commuter standpoint, in terms of work. Maybe not like if you want to be like on your party, hangout, kick it kind of thing, for the late night travel. But I just think from a to and fro aspect of just getting to work, it's a pretty effective way of transit that makes more sense than sitting in tunnels all day and just increasing your commute by literal hours if you allow it. I can count the number of times, honestly, that I've driven through Lower Manhattan and Midtown, like just zipped and ran through the streets. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And if anything, if I was going to get in a vehicle, it would be an Uber if it came down to that. And while you're actually in Manhattan, that doesn't necessarily have to cost that much, of course, depending. Well, Uber, they've been tripping lately, child, but that's a whole nother conversation. So let's talk about the toll rates for the vehicles. What's congestion pricing? So congestion pricing is something that you'll see like if you go to London, and it's really just about when you're traveling in certain zones, then you are taxed basically for these zones. It is meant to be something that's going to actually improve public transit. We'll see about that. But what are the congestion pricing zones? About the program, since January 5th, 2025, vehicles entering the congestion relief zone in Manhattan, local streets and avenues, or below 60th Street are being charged a toll. The toll will result in 80,000 fewer vehicles entering the zone every day, relieving crowding in what is today the most congested district in the United States. On March 27, 2024, the MTA board, voted to approve the toll rates recommended by the Traffic Mobility Review Board. Certain drivers entering the congestion relief zone will be eligible for discounts or exemptions. On November 18th, 2024, the MTA board voted to approve a phased-in approach to the Central Business District tolling program. Okay. Starting January 5th, 2025, vehicles will be charged a toll to enter the congestion relief zone, formerly referred to as the Manhattan Central Business District. The area of Manhattan south of and including 60th Street, excluding the FDR Drive, West Side Highway, Route 9A, and the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel. I still call it Battery Tunnel, but I'll just keep using Hugh L. Carey for our sake here. Connections to West Street. Okay, so that's just really what it is. So basically, if you are driving on the West Side Highway or you are driving on the FDR, you are not going to be tolled if you are on those particular routes, or anything that connects the both of them you will not be tolled. It's once you actually start entering into the streets. So unfortunately, guys, this also means that we're going to be tolled if we are taking the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, and the Williamsburg Bridge. It's all part of it now. Those used to be free. Here's some other facts here, guys. The time of day. This is what's crazy to me, because I think the peak time period is really, really, really outrageous and obnoxious. I do think that they could have given people relief on this if they were going to try to meet us somewhere where people could kind of like frown but accept it. The time of day, the peak period toll rates applies for 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays and from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekends. The overnight toll rates are 75% less than the respective rates in the standard peak period for all drivers entering the congestion relief zone. Of course, by type of vehicle, it's going to cost more depending on the type of vehicle as well. So for most of us guys, passenger vehicles, the passenger and small commercial vehicles, which includes sedans, SUVs, pickup trucks, and small vans, basically anything that you and I would be driving, most of us anyway, okay? So that means if you're not in a working capacity and you're not driving a commercial truck, it's going to be $9 during the peak period and $2.25 during the overnight period where there is less congestion. If you drive a motorcycle, the toll for motorcycles is $4.50 for the peak period and $1.05 during the overnight period. So just keeping you guys. There's also all kinds of talk here on crossing credits and discounts. I won't completely get into that. I will say this, guys. If you don't have an Easy Pass at this particular point in time and you drive a fair bit, get an Easy Pass. I mean, this whole toll in the mail thing, and I'm looking at what they charge you guys for not even having it, it's not even worth it. So, don't let the discounts pass you by. There are different discounts. It's all very, very confusing. I really think, guys, this is just the kind of person that I am, right? Like, I'm very much so that spreadsheet girl, and I put things like I'm just very organized in that way. I think you need to start doing this kind of like we have to do old school, when we used to have to write down directions. Figure out, map out what you're going to be doing. I think that, and this is just coming out of, not even out of endorsement, but it is what it is. I think that Waze is an amazing way of planning out your trips, knowing what you're actually going to spend, how you're going to spend it, and just sort of laying out, obviously they get you on the right path as far as the live updates, as far as, what the traffic is looking like and so forth. But Waze is a very direct way of just sort of helping you figure out whatever your plan is. And it does include the tolls in it. Whereas I feel like with Google Maps, tells you where to go, but it's not really real time. And you don't have with Waze, you have the Waze users who kind of help each other out as far as even if police are on the route, if there's objects in the road, anything like that. Waze is an incredible tool for being a better driver and being a safer driver. So that is just my free endorsement there. I truly believe in what they have there, and it's helped me out tremendously when I drive, and I use it on a daily basis. I was looking at some of the toll increases in expectation as time is going to go on, and that was outrageous. So this is what the toll is costing us now. Let me let you guys know what the breakdown of what it's going to be. So tolls will be phased in completely by 2031, guys. That's not that far away. Okay, we're already in 2025, so consider this. The MTA is phasing in the toll structure over a 6-year period with an initial $9 peak toll for cars. The toll will increase to $12 in 2028 and then $15 in 2031. Okay. There's actually a toll schedule on the MTA website. And actually, what I did find very, very helpful and useful, the MTA actually has a page on the website where it's a congestion relief zone toll rate calculator. So you can actually put down there, I'm driving the type of vehicle that you're driving, and you can say that you're entering during whatever the period is, and you can also say where you're entering from, and it will tell you what your toll is gonna be. So I put down here in this example when I went to this congestion relief zone toll. Let's see, and I'll go ahead and make sure that I make this available to you guys. I put down that I'm driving a passenger vehicle. I'm first entering through peak period. Let's say 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. weekdays, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekends, which is so funny to me because that is actually, let's see something. So the irony of this is this, right? This is just so inconsistent to me because we're talking about the city ticket, right? So the city ticket is what you get through the LIRR, where if you live within the city zones, then there are peak times and there are off-peak times. So for the city ticket, it costs $5 off-peak and $7 during peak, and it's for the LIRR. They're good for one-way travel that begins and ends within New York City. LIRR riders can change trains at Jamaica as long as they continue their trips in the same direction. On LIRR, you can use city tickets for trips within Zone 1 or between Zone 1 and Zone 3. On Metro North, you can use city tickets for trips between the Bronx and Manhattan. A special Far Rockaway ticket can be purchased at Far Rockaway Station for travel between Far Rockaway and LIRR stations in Manhattan and Brooklyn at the same cost as a city ticket. But I'm saying all that to say the city ticket, the peak times, let's see. Okay, so the city ticket peak times are this, right? This is what's so funny. City ticket peak times are NYC terminals if you're actually heading into the city between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., okay, Monday through Friday, and departing between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m., Monday through Friday. Those are the peak times. Off-peak times are anywhere wedged between or anywhere afterwards, right? So that's sort of speaking to the sort of the rush hour traffic. So I just think that there's a little bit of a I don't know. I just feel like there's something that's a little inconsistent in that. I just think that making that at 9 p.m. as far as a peak, I don't think that's really fair to individuals that are entering for sure. It's like you're entering Manhattan 8 o'clock and like that's a peak time. That just sounds really really outrageous. Here's really what I think about this, guys. When it comes all down to it, and my opinion on congestion pricing. Like I said, I don't agree with congestion pricing. My reasoning for not agreeing with congestion pricing, it's not it's not just because I don't want to pay $9, right? It's this. So how you guys will be watching the news or anything, and however you consume that information, right? 'Cause nowadays, like who's really sort of turning on the TV and listening to live network, right? A lot of us kind of get our information on demand, however we do that, but we do. A lot of us, and for me, I need to know what's going on. But you'll find that something terrible has happened, right? And they'll catch some criminals, and you'll see they'll have four suspects, and their faces are clear as day right there on the MTA. And you'll see, and if you know somebody, you'll be like, "Ain't that Keisha from around the block?" You would know who it was. And so but again, so there's tracking measures to really really figure out where we all are. So there's a great number of people who just prefer to be that are not committing crimes, that prefer to be off the grid. And I'm really considering these things, right? So think about how New York City has become such a police state, right? Where it's like now the entirety of New York City, if you guys are unaware of this, is on city streets is 25 miles an hour. That's fine. On residential streets, I can actually understand the utility in that. When you're talking about those huge like those artery streets, right? Those arteries like an Atlantic Avenue, traveling 25 miles an hour on Atlantic Avenue. Again, I don't know what you guys are doing with this extra money, but Atlantic Avenue looks like, okay. So when you're on these particular streets, right, and there's photo cameras, next thing you know, you can accumulate so many photo cameras, so many tickets from the cameras. And not me so much, guys. I'm really very grandma about it, and I'm cheaper than I am a risk taker. So I'm not necessarily that individual, but I do know people that have accumulated a lot of tickets. If you're going to go over a certain amount of, and let's just see what the camera does clock. Let's get some facts here. Photo tickets at New York, what speed? Okay, so in New York City, drivers are issued photo tickets for speeding more than 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Okay, so it seems that if you go, so here we go. So more than 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, the standard speed limit, if you're getting caught on camera, is 25 miles per hour here in New York City. If you go 35 miles per hour, which again is not incredibly fast when you think about an Atlantic Avenue, but it is what it is. It's the law. So, we are all, we're subject to it. It is what it is. But yeah, you get the photo ticket, and the photo ticket it's ticketed to the license. It is not a ticket to your actual. I'm sorry, the photo ticket is ticketed to the license plate. It's not ticketed to your license. So you would not get speeding points for that per se, because anybody could be driving your vehicle. So at least that's fair. Yeah, but as far as the speeding cameras, just a couple of things to know, guys. Is the speeding camera violation in New York City is $50. Speeding cameras are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you're gonna get it, you're gonna get it, right? They're coming for you. Fines, it seems here. I've never had a bus lane camera violation. Guys, again, I'm not the person to be doing all that. Bus lane camera, $50. Red light camera, $50 as well. So again, no points on the license. Speed camera violations do not result in points on your driver's license because, again, they don't even know if you're the one that's driving the vehicle. So it's not really even that, okay? So that's that. I say all this to say, guys, now once we get to a point now where we're talking about, now you're tracking my every single move. This is what's bothering me more. Again, the congestion pricing aspect of it, I feel like they're telling us that they want to do projects that are going to improve, and I'll not use their language here. Let's see what they've committed to doing. Let's see, congestion pricing. This is coming straight from their website. This is their PR and their propaganda. This is what they're telling us, right? It's time for a city that moves faster, breathes easier, and works better. Congestion pricing will dramatically reduce traffic in the congestion relief zone, transforming the area from gridlocked to unlocked. Less traffic means cleaner air, safer streets, and better transit. Folks, as a sidebar, what does that mean for areas like the Bronx? When I was in school, I was constantly told one of the main things was that Bronx has the highest asthma rate in the entire city. It is burdened with with terrible, terrible air quality. There are people who have asthma, like myself, just simply from being residents of the Bronx, right? So this is what they're saying. They're saying that with this $9, this is what they intend to do. New York's extensive transit network needs investment. Every weekday, the MTA carries nearly 6 million riders on trains and buses through a vast web of stations, tunnels, tracks, and other critical infrastructure that requires continuous investment. Revenue generated by congestion pricing will fund some of the region's most important transit capital projects, including accessibility improvements at over 20 stations, modern signal systems on segments of the AC and BDFM lines for over 1.5 million daily riders, hundreds of new electric buses, 2nd Avenue subway phase 2 extension to East Harlem, critical projects that keep our system in good working condition, such as structural repairs, power system improvements, and upgrades to bus depots, right? Now, here's my thing, guys. In the time that in most of our lifetimes, and I don't know how long some of you guys have actually lived in New York City or what you've seen, but someone had made a post that didn't really go well because it actually just really was not, it was actually kind of ironic because he was talking about like what he's seen since he's lived in New York. So this guy, he's kind of like pro congestion pricing, right? And this is what he said. He said, things that didn't exist when I moved to the city 15 years ago. Omni. I will say this. Omni is basically the tap system that you use instead of any kind of like a Metro card. And, if you guys are token heads, then you know about that too. But you just tap it. And a lot of people are just very frustrated with the Omni system as well. They're saying that the credits don't transfer. It's not working. I don't take the subway enough for this to be really something that is like a hot button issue for me. But for me, the Omni, I'm indifferent. It is what it is. 2nd Avenue subway. So the 2nd Avenue subway extension, it is intended at some particular point that they're going to bring that to 125th Street. Okay, I think that's great. I think that is access that would be necessary for people. But again, that's not a lot in 15 years, guys. The 7 train extension, subway countdown clocks, that's probably one of the best things that has happened to me is the subway countdown clocks. But then when you see the subway countdown clocks and it's like the eight's coming in 48 minutes, I mean, that doesn't help either. So I don't know, like it just, I'm either really angry about it or like really happy about it, so that is what it is. Cell service on the subways. The cell service is when the subway actually when the car actually stops. You will see that you get cell service. There's parts like sometimes when you're near Times Square, you actually get some access a little bit like on the shuttle. But no, I wouldn't count that. It's there, and even if you wanted to log into the Wi-Fi, I do not agree or I do not recommend that you guys log into public Wi-Fi ever. So don't do that. But if you do, it's not consistent, right? So I wouldn't do that anyway, but just don't do it. Don't do it anyway, and it's not consistent. We want to be able to say, I want to be able to say that like I am at the very top of the Bronx on 225th, and I'm coming all the way down to like the most southernmost, tip of Brooklyn. And I want to be able to have the whole time played games on my phone or talked, nonsense on the internet or whatever. I don't want any service to be stopped. I don't feel like I should have to be an overhead train to be able to communicate with people. So, that's not acceptable. 14th Street Busway, a reliable LNG train. I think anybody saying a reliable LNG train is absolutely, you need your head checked. Those trains, first of all, the G train to me, because I've taken the G train more so in a reverse commuting capacity, whereas I was coming from parts Brooklyn on the G, and let's just say like I'm coming from Bed-Stuy, and I'm going into Park Slope. That was the smoothest commute. Like, you're kind of almost like, you're on the same, you don't have to sit next to anybody because everybody's going another kind of an opposite way. So that's always been a treat for me. But I feel like the G train to me, it's one of the most important, crucial lines, and I think it's very unfortunate that there's no other line that truly connects Brooklyn and Queens in that way. Like, I look at the actual map of, I'm very much so an enthusiast when it comes to transportation and transportation planning. So I'm saying this as somebody that actually gives a ish about this, right? But take a look at the subway map, right? And there's existing tracks that are just not in use. That's a whole nother conversation, right? Like, let's get these closed stations open. Like, if you guys are gonna be capital planning, let's do something with it. But think about this, right? So look, the G train, I have no complaints about the G's actual route. I think it's very, very useful and necessary. But what if there was a way, like, let's just say that there was a train that connected Lorimer to 69th Street, right? Or the 69th Street 7, or the 65th Street MR, right? A train that connected that same, I don't know, Knickerbocker to Woodhaven. Like, think about all those places, Broadway Junction to Forest Hills, all these particular routes. Like, there's so many north-south routes that are just missing. And I feel like if all of these projects were done just way back in the olden days, right? Why can't we do those projects now? Like why aren't we doing these things? I don't get it. Look at Brooklyn, right? With Brooklyn, the connectivity from a west east, it's horrible. Like, if you or somebody taking public transit, why should somebody in Bay Ridge that wants to go to, let's say, Canarsie, it's just like how do I plan this trip? I'm on the last trip, right? I'm on the last route in Bay Ridge, and I want to go to Canarsie. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a route that went straight from Bay Ridge right across? I mean, shoots right across, right? Like, going more so like northeast, but just a shoots across, stops on the N, stops on the F, stops on the BQ, stops at the 2-5, comes in, and we order add like 3 more routes to Canarsie. This is what I'm talking about. Like, I'm talking about like really ambitious stuff, like the anti-Robert Moses stuff. Anti-Robert Moses. And by the way, guys, read the Power Broker. You will be like completely like, you'll understand like how crazy things have gotten and how much power that can be put into one man's hands, right? So definitely read the Power Broker if you get a chance. And I don't know what goes on Staten Island, but I look at that one, that one rail system, and I'd have to ask somebody there what they think about that as well. Um, but even I'm looking at the Bronx. I don't know incredibly. I don't know too much about the Bronx, right? But I do wonder what individuals in the Bronx think about. And when I'm just looking at the connectivity again. I'm not coming from a place of really any kind of real intimate understanding. But I wonder what you guys would think about if, like, they were more like from High Bridge to Soundview. If it literally was a west to east connecting train, you didn't take a bus; it just went there. If it was from, say, I'm looking at Queensbridge Road, right, which is on the 4, Queensbridge Road, connecting to the 2-5 at Pelham Parkway, connecting to the Morris Park, connecting to Middletown. I'm sorry. Like, where are these projects? Where are these ideas? Where are the trolleys? Where really? And I will say this: I do take buses a lot. I think the express buses are also excellent when you really know what you're doing. You could definitely take express buses from Midtown. We'll get you into Queens. I've taken them into like Kew Gardens. I've taken them into Jamaica. There are express buses that will get you from Queens to the Bronx. But again, what are we talking about here, guys? What I think would be a great improvement that's very fair to Queens and the Bronx is, what if there was just better connectivity, right? I can drive from Queens to the Bronx in like 30 minutes, right? Or even like to Harlem. 25 minutes from Queens, right? Just depending. Like I'm like deeper in Queens. It's nothing if you're like near the Astoria side. But let's just say I was like somewhere in, I don't know, Kew Gardens or Jackson Heights, something like that. Maybe 25 minutes, okay, into the Bronx. If you're taking the train there, though, that 20, 30 minutes or so forth, you're talking about somebody would have to take about an hour and a half just to go the same route because there's no connectivity. Look at all that access that's just missing. Like people that you just don't see. Look at all these places in Queens that just have really no train service at all. Like people that have to take a bus to a train to a bus. Like, oh my goodness, the two fare zones. Like there's so many problems. And the MTA is not going to solve them. So that's my problem. My problem is that I do believe that the MTA is kind of, I think all this has become a police state. And then where does it all end, right? Now you guys are tracking where I'm driving, right? And it's also like, who's this all for? Like I'm paying all this and I'm doing this and that. And again, I'm not here to, to commit crimes or to do anything that is, against the law or that is, principally or morally bankrupt. But what about things that, just happen to everyday people? Like what if it comes down to, you not having the money to pay your car note? Or what if your mortgage is behind or whatever, and you're just trying to figure it out and you're just driving around and maybe they're trying to, maybe your car is in danger of being repoed. Are they going to be able to say like we've been tracking this individual and she's been on the West Side Highway? Because again, I know that there's access points where they're actually charging, but now they're just like they are putting surveillance on everything that we do, guys. You think that they're getting into our cell phones and pinging towers and figuring out where someone was? I mean, of course, that always works. It works to many people's benefits because they can provide the appropriate alibis. Like I was nowhere over there, child. I was here. I was at karaoke. You cannot tell me that I had anything to do with that crime because you will see my phone was being used here. Of course, people that commit crimes doesn't work in their favor. But I just feel like it's draconian at this point, right? And I wrote some notes down. I was thinking about these things. And I was talking to one of my friends, and this is what he said. So he's operating in an anonymous capacity. He would never want anything to do with this. He's not an online guy. He said, and if it means anything to anybody, he is a homeowner and a driver in Brooklyn. It's part of the, like, because I said, what are your thoughts on congestion pricing? He said, it's part of the agenda to extort money from the citizenry and to control our behavior. It tracks just like every other thing they've been doing to constrain our driving. Reduction of lanes, two ways made into one way, blocking off access to some streets or segments of them, placing big rocks and big flower pots intermittently in the middle of the road, painting colorfully swaths of streets, and placing sitting chairs and rocks and pots to prevent parking, making bicycle lanes needlessly wider and positioning them where cars used to be parked. Meanwhile, the use of all those things that they've replaced driving lanes, parking, etc., with have been minimal, very little utility. If all these ill-conceived ideas are supposed to get us used to use the subway, how safe and clean and timely is the subway? So obviously he's very pro-vehicle, But again, listen, these are real things. A woman was burned alive on the subway in New York City, like in Manhattan. That's crazy to think about. Someone was just stabbed in Grand Central today. And there's constantly things going on in the subways, stabbings. There were police that shot innocent people, like that were sitting on the train. There's constantly, I've seen so many things. I've seen things on the subway. Somebody sat in front of me on the subway one day, and this lady was sitting in front of me. And she was staring crazy. I'm like, girl, do I know you? And for me, I'm on go mode because I'm like, I don't know what this lady wants, but whatever she wants, she gonna receive it because I'm gonna give you what you're looking for. And the lady just starts just staring at me intensely. First, she's standing in front of me staring. And I'm like, okay, like I gotta kind of, I don't know what's going on. Then the lady sits down across from me and she starts smoking crack. And I'm like, hello, guys, she's smoking crack. I see people with baby strollers. I'm seeing people just reading their books, acting like nothing's going on. And I feel like I'm just like, am I in a simulation? Hello, looks at the camera like, are you guys serious? Like, no one's going to get up with me and like get off this crack car. And they don't. And these are things that we see on the subway, guys. Like, it's all kinds of stuff. You try to go to the train station now, people are like, yo, I got an eighth, I got this. I don't smoke weed. Don't try to sell me marijuanas on the damn subway. What is happening? What happened to all of these dispensaries you sure had? So anyway, this same individual that I know says that this has been going on since, because I said, this is what I said. Again, I get into the tracking of it all. Like they're just getting into our business. They're tracking every single thing that we do. They want to know every single thing that we do. And listen, the Omni is the same way, right? The Omni card, it's tracking your spending habits. It's attached to you. Like if you're somebody that really tries to stay off the grid, it's very hard to do so. You go on an MTA station right now, they can read the serial number off of a freaking dollar bill. You know, these cameras, all the cameras that are in actual that are actually the surveillance that are in Manhattan, especially near like the Fifth Avenue and those kind of districts, the Diamond District, all of that. Come on, guys, they see everything that we're doing every single day. Like, it's scary times. And I guess, listen, I just want to know what people think about congestion pricing, whether you're for it or against it, whether you think that, and really, whether you're for it or against it. I think my question would be more so, are you actually a driver yourself? Um, And if you're a driver, were you driving below 60th Street? And I'm not really talking to people that are working in a delivery capacity or delivery, people that have had to drive, they have their CDLs and things like that, where it's something that's really a function of your job. But I'm just talking about the individual that lives in Westchester or Long Island. What are the chances that you would really truly drive to Times Square? Like that's just, to me, that's unheard of. I don't know people that are doing that. So I feel like that idea is oversold. And all of this to get everybody to be like pro congestion pricing and like, yeah, get those cars out of the way, blah, blah, blah. That's not the issue. The issue is that they are really, really, really taking great liberties and making strides to really, really get in your business. And they've had you guys champion their causes unbeknownst to you. And it's not to your benefit, guys. It's not, you know, it's not. And am I completely burdened by congestion pricing? Not really. Most of my travel would involve me really traveling from. I mean, I'm taking like toll routes. I don't like having to use my Easy Pass. Prior to congestion pricing, I'm just gonna be completely and thoroughly transparent and honest, guys. The chances of me taking the Queensboro Bridge, even though it's free, as opposed to taking the RFK, which tends to be faster and much more direct, fewer. I measure it against the cost of my time. I don't want to waste my time, and I also don't want to idle. I don't want to be in traffic. So I see that aspect of it, but I'm also not someone that's, I'm not driving through and into the interiors of Manhattan. I just don't see that as an issue for most people. I don't. Now, I think it's unfortunate. I think a lot of the individuals that do live in Upper Manhattan may have to deal with parking issues now, probably, who knows, because people don't want to enter that zone. So, particularly if you're somebody that lives on the Upper West Side or Upper East Side, good luck. I'm sure that's going to affect you guys because of this. Individuals that actually live in those zones, they're not going to be burdened by this. So, let's just make sure. If you live in the congestion zone, and let's see, do you have to pay? Yeah, so New Yorkers who, and this is coming, so New Yorkers who live within the congestion relief zone will not be charged to drive or park around the area. They will only be charged once they leave and cross back into the zone. So I don't know. I mean, who lives below 60th Street and drives though? So I mean, I don't know about that. That doesn't make sense to me. I would almost think that, listen, if I were somebody that lived below 60th Street, you know, and I had a car, I'm probably driving to the boroughs, or maybe I'm driving to Jersey, and maybe I'm kind of doing a little bit of more of a reverse commute. I'd almost imagine that I probably would have a monthly parking situation outside of New York. Probably like I'd be parking my car at a garage in the outer boroughs, maybe, or parking in Jersey or Long Island, whatever the case may be. But I don't see that, many people would want to keep a car if they live below 60th Street as a primary residence. Like there'd have to be a reason why you had that car. I don't get that. So I want people to be a little bit more realistic about what you're really doing. And again, I don't know. This does not it does not make me comfortable. I feel like it's just more reason to be in our business. And I think it has so much less to do with the $9 and these so-called, capital projects and improvements that they're doing. They ain't doing it, guys. What have you seen in your lifetimes that they've done? You know, they did way more back in the day when TVs were black and white, guys. Come on now. And we can get into the specifics of that. But for now, guys, that's congestion pricing in a nutshell, and my opinion on it. And hope you're well. Once again, my name is Koku, and save the heathens. That's a very, very important agenda for me, and it's something that I work on every single day of my life. Ciao.